up, all you individuals out there? It's me, full-time anime man, and I am finally back here with part 8 of What If Deku Was in the Dino Squad. So, yeah, lots been going on. I just finished God of War, best game ever so far, and I'm thinking about calling Kratos not by the God of War anymore, but instead, Kratos the Great. And yet, sadly, there has been a downhill challenge from here. Sadly, one of my favorite actors had recently passed away December 5th. Rest in peace, Christy Alley. Anyway, let's go ahead and get into this video. This is What If Deku Was in the Dino Squad, Part 8. I hope you all enjoy. Where we last left off, Izuku had discovered that One For All is changing him, altering his DNA into real dinosaur, Tyrannosaurus Rex DNA. To a point, it changes his mind like one. Picking up where we left off, in Izuku's bedroom, he sat at his desk with his hands in his head. What should I do? Am I gonna have to give One For All back? I don't want to give it back. I come so far with it. Let's see. So far, what I've known is that whenever I feel like I'm losing control is when I'm feeling extreme anger or very stressed. Maybe if I get a good grip on my emotions, I could control it. Yeah, maybe. It's worth a shot. And so, Izuku does his research on human emotions and practices controlling his breathing exercises for the next 7 days. And in those past 7 days, school has begun once again, and Izuku is walking down the hallway heading to his classroom. When he entered the classroom, Ida, Uraraka, Todoroki, and Bakugo were there. Still a few minutes left before class, so everyone was still showing up. Izuku greeted them. They all reminisced about the USJ attack, and Uraraka comments about how well Izuku and Todoroki took care of that Nomu creature. Izuku blushes a bit, saying, "Yeah, it was just something that came to mind. I just wish that I had gotten to their leader faster before he escaped." Ida tells Izuku that it's fine, and that he's just more glad that everyone made it out alive. Soon, everyone else shows up and class starts. Aizawa entered the room covered in medical bandages from head to toe. Ida pops up asking him if he's sure that he's in good condition to actually teach today, to which Aizawa would comment that his well-being is irrelevant at the moment, and that they all need to prepare for the sports festival, which its purpose is to show off their quirks and to catch the eye of big hero corporations to take them under their wings. And hearing that pumps everyone up, with Uraraka being the most enthusiastic about it. She even comments about how she's going to do her best to win and give it her all. Izuku gives her a sympathetic smile, and he shows off the same energy, especially vowing that if he comes in first place, he's going to give the world his loudest Tyrannosaurus Rex roar that his throat can muster. Soon, school comes to an end, and everyone is packing up their things to get ready to go home. Izuku, packing up his things, was approached by Tsuyu. Izuku? Oh, hey, Sue. What's up? Sue, tightly gripping the books, says, I just wanted to thank you for saving me from that man. My heart nearly stopped when his hand was so close to touching my face. I just felt like something bad was going to happen. Izuku says, "Oh, well, it's okay, Sue. You don't have to thank me. More than anything, I'm just glad that you were okay. And Mineta, of course. Like, if anything were to happen to you guys, I wouldn't know what to do." Sue's heart was aflutter from that comment. She felt love-stricken. She would then ask Izuku if she could hug him, and Izuku was a bit surprised by that comment and agrees to hug Sue. From the other side of the room, Uraraka sees this, and she feels a bit jealous. As everyone gets ready to leave, when they open the door, almost everyone in the school was standing at their doorway. Ida speaks up. May I ask you all what you're doing here? Bakugo steps forward, saying they're here to scout out the competition. I got better things I need to do. Now why don't you extras move out the way? A guy with purple hair steps forward and starts bad-mouthing the 1A students. Kirishima steps in and retaliates, saying that there's no possible chance that anyone in this class is going to be replaced by the likes of any of them. He even goes on to mention everyone's quirks, such as one guy can create electricity with his body, the other girl can create anything with her body, and they even have a dinosaur on their side. To which everyone's curiosity, they leaned in hoping to see it, but then the purple-headed boy said, I don't see it. And this is where Izuku steps forward, and he says, he's talking about me. The purple-headed boy then said, can you show us? Nope, said Izuku. I only change when it's important, for emergencies only. Psh, whatever. What a letdown. Come on, everybody. I honestly don't know what you all got me worked up for. Izuku looks to his classmates, and he puts his hands up to his ears, suggesting that everyone cover their ears. And Izuku then lets out the loudest roar that his throat can muster, and that loud roar made everyone outside fall down out of fear. This made the purple-headed one take Izuku a little more serious. When everyone had finally left, Izuku was making his way to the train station on his way to an undisclosed location to practice his controlling, until he was approached by Uraraka. Izuku! Oh, hey Uraraka. Uraraka says, I need to ask you something. Is there anything going on between you and Sue? Izuku blushes from this question while rubbing the back of his head. No, we're just friends. A smile comes across Uraraka's face and says, okay, I just wanted to make sure. I'll see you later. She then runs off in the opposite direction, and Izuku is left confused. The next day comes, and Izuku is at a car wrecked yard where there is no one around. He is sitting on top of a car in a meditative position with his legs crossed and his fingers in the meditative position. He is practicing his breathing exercises with his eyes closed. He focuses tightly on his breathing, and then, suddenly, the top of the car starts caving in. Izuku's body starts expanding out, and then he opens his eyes. They were bloodshot red as he lets out a smile, and we fade to black with a Tyrannosaurus Rex roar. We then reappear at the UA Sports Festival, where every 1A student was in the resting room waiting for things to get started. Izuku was in the corner meditating while squeezing a stress gripper, when suddenly he was approached by Todoroki. Midoriya. Yes, Todoroki? He says this while still in his meditative position. Todoroki starts ranting about how better he is than him, and even comments about how he has 2 quirks and his so-called enhancement strength quirk almost resembles All Might. Yet regardless, he comments that he will beat him. Izuku chuckles and says, does that mean you're going to use your fire side? Todoroki scoffs at this comment. You say you're going to go all out, which means you're going to use 100% of your power. I mean, we all are going to go out in this thing, Todoroki. Show the people what we have. Show off our skill. Duly noted, you got into UA because you were recommended. That means you must be real skilled with your quirk, as well as must be powerful. But yet, you barely use it. You mostly just use your ice. Why is that? Ugh, it's none of your damn business. Todoroki then stomps off, leaving the room, and when he's outside, he vents his frustration by punching the wall with ice, causing it to crack and cave in. Soon, things get started, and every student enters the stadium, preparing to hear what the first competition will be. But first, Midnight wanted the class representative of 1A to come up and share a few words, to which Izuku was called up, and he would just tell everyone to give it their all and to play fair and play it safe. And with that, the foot race begins. Things become a bit tighter in the hallway through the tunnel, and just as everyone is almost out, Todoroki is the first one out, leaving a trail of ice behind him, nearly snaring everyone by the foot, except for a majority of his classmates and Izuku, who managed to crawl alongside the walls with his first transformation and gets out. Soon, they make it to the spot where the robots are, and almost everyone sees Todoroki laying waste to the robots, freezing them in place, causing them to shatter, or using his ice to create weapons and damage them. Soon, the giant zero-pointer robots are spotted, and Bakugo, wanting to show off his skills, leaps into action. Using his explosions, he sets off to take himself to the sky, leaping into the face of one of the giant zero-pointers. When Todoroki looks up and sees the fiery explosion, this enrages him, and he starts rampaging through the rest of the robots, even causing a giant glacier of ice to form behind a zero-pointer, causing it to fall forward. While students were underneath its path, some were able to get out on time, but there were 3 other students that were caught underneath its path of falling: Tetsu, Kirishima, and Izuku. Tetsu and Kirishima embraced for the impact, raising their hands up, ready for the impact to come, but when they heard the thud, the impact never came. They slowly open their eyes, and they see that Izuku is holding the robot up while still in his first dinosaur form. Kirishima calls his name in surprise. Izuku? Quick, get out while you still can. Tetsu speak up, but dude, what about you? Suddenly, the robot starts lowering slower and slower, and Izuku yells at them to get out quickly. They run out from underneath the robot, and the robot falls on Izuku, flattening him. Someone yelled for someone to go get help, and even some tried to raise the robot to get it off of Izuku. But then suddenly, the robot started shaking, and there was light emanating from underneath it. And the robot started rising up higher and higher, and all the students could see are giant lizard-like legs. When it is up higher above their heads, it reveals that Izuku was in his full Tyrannosaurus Rex form, and then, with colorful electricity emanating throughout his body, he then ejected the robot off of him. He was feeling extremely stressed out, and yet such anger and rage took him. He looked to everyone and yelled at them to cover their ears, some not completely understanding what he said, but his classmates understood, and they all yelled at everyone to quickly cover their ears, and they all do it, and Izuku lets out the loudest roar that he has ever done before. His roar was so loud that almost all the glass items that were around him started shattering from the intensity. Soon he stops, and as he stops, he starts to feel dizzy, and his body just feels tired from the heavy lifting. He starts stumbling around, and then he slowly starts shrinking back down to normal. Everyone ushers to Izuku, making sure that he's okay. Kirishima asks, Izuku, bro, are you okay? Izuku breathes heavily and says, yeah, I'm fine, but come on, we gotta keep going. Izuku runs off, and everyone is just amazed that he was actually able to just walk that off after being crushed. Anyway, they continue, and soon Todoroki comes across the abyss. He jumps from pillar to pillar, and soon he is accompanied by Izuku. But then, just as they were almost there at the end, Izuku heard a scream for help just behind him. He turned around and saw that Denki Kaminari, his classmate, was dangling off of one of the pillars. He then turned around and quickly helped him up. Oh, thanks, Midoriya. It's no problem. Be more careful. Keep going. Soon, Todoroki also comes across the mining area, and without even reading the signs warning him of the danger, he stepped on a mine and the explosion sent him up into the air a few feet, and causing him to hit the ground with tremendous force. Most people who saw this couldn't hold back their laughter, but Todoroki, being determined, got onto his feet and treaded a little more carefully this time. Eventually, Izuku caught up to him and he passed him, which caused Todoroki to want to speed up a bit more quicker. Soon, they are caught up by other contestants. Izuku was almost across and Todoroki decides to try a new maneuver. He conjures a few ice chunks into his hands and he throws them at the ground, causing a few mines to explode. Izuku turned around, hearing people's screams, and he sees Todoroki causing the explosions, yet sending a lot of people into the air and may even possibly be hurting them. How far is he willing to go to win? Said Izuku. It's just a competition, not a duel for the last one standing. Regardless of this, Izuku was really angry. He then ran towards Todoroki with all his might and then he tackled him to the ground, not minding the mines that nearly exploded near them. People were on the edge of their seats just wondering, what was he doing? Todoroki started fighting back, but Izuku kept him down, barricading his arms down. His eyes were a bloodshot red and his teeth were razor sharp. His claws nearly dug into Todoroki's skin. "Let go of me, Midoriya," said Todoroki. "What is wrong with you?" said Izuku. "Seriously, I mean, who hurt you? Where do you come from where you think it is okay to do people like this? Because you come from a rich family? Well, let me tell you this right now. When you are at home, you can act like an ass all you want, but here at school or anywhere else, you treat other people with the utmost respect. Do you understand me? Because if you don't, I cannot withstand the responsibility that comes after what I do next." Izuku takes a deep breath, remembering his breathing exercises, and he realized that he let the ugly side of him show. And he slowly gets off of Todoroki, and he apologizes to him for the harsh words and his actions. Uraraka steps forward and says, "It's okay, just breathe, okay? Okay." They continue the race, and they enter the tunnel where it leads to the finish line. It was Bakugo, Uraraka, Todoroki, Ida, and Izuku who were in the lead. When they reached the finish line, Todoroki was in first place, while Bakugo was in second, Uraraka was in third, Todoroki in fourth. Izuku just stopped in his tracks, just a few feet ahead of the finish line. He stopped because he felt ashamed of himself. Does he really deserve to even participate in this? Soon, other students start passing Izuku. Some were bumping into him, not even moving forward. And soon, he was approached by Tsuyu Asui, who was still heading towards the finish line. "Hey, Midoriya, what's wrong?" A few seconds pass, and Izuku finally responds back, as other people continued to pass by, until he said, "I shouldn't be here." "What? Why do you think that?" "It's how I acted towards Todoroki, and I just feel ashamed and embarrassed of myself." Izuku feels Sue grabbing a hold of his hand, telling him that it's okay. She then takes Izuku across the finish line, and the race comes to an end. Izuku knew he could have easily gotten first place, but he felt like he didn't really deserve it. He let the best of himself be exposed, and he let people see the ugly side of him. And with that, he already felt like going home and just taking the walk of shame when suddenly he felt hands on both sides of his shoulders. He turned around and saw Kirishima and Tetsu Tetsu. Oh, you two. Hey, what can I do for you? Hey, Midoriya, said Kirishima. We just wanted to thank you for saving us from that falling robot. Yeah, I may be able to turn my skin into solid steel, but I personally don't think that would have saved me. Yeah, and I may be able to turn my skin into a really hard substance, but I doubt that would have saved me too. Izuku says, well, that's not true. You guys are just about the toughest guys that are around in UA. More than anything, I'm just glad that no one got hurt. And Kirishima says, it's all thanks to you. You ever need anything, don't hesitate to ask, okay? Izuku smiles. Thanks, I really appreciate it. Izuku was then approached by Midnight, and he thought she was going to scold him, but instead she placed a hand on his shoulder, asking him if he's okay after being crushed by the robot, and asked him if he wanted to go to Recovery Woman's office. But Izuku just said that he's fine. But Midnight suggested that he went there just to be safe, and announced to everyone that they're going to take a short recess. Soon, they allow things to continue in the festival, and the next round is a cavalry battle. Soon, everyone starts looking to partner up with people with headbands, but Izuku noticed that Uraraka is trying to ask some people for her team, but a lot of people decline her offer for reasons of her having a much more larger point headband. Izuku approaches her, a hand on her shoulder, and tells her that he'll join her team. She smiled and thanked him, as well as hugging him. A few feet away, Tsuyu could see Izuku and Uraraka, and she feels some type of way, a sort of jealousy, if you may, flowing through her, but she couldn't let that get in the way, and she decides to team up with Mineta and Shoji. Soon, Izuku convinces Tokoyami and Mei Hatsume to join their team, and soon everyone gets ready, and everyone mostly has their eyes on Todoroki. Izuku suggests that they avoid Todoroki to go for smaller numbers. She agrees, and Midnight continues to count down from 10 to 1, and then said, "Begin." Everyone starts lunging at one another's team. One team charges at Ochako's team. She sees them and she wants to say something, but she's in shock because everyone around her is just moving so fast. Izuku calls her name, but she doesn't respond. And so, Izuku decides to take matters into his own hands, and he lets out a T-Rex supersonic scream to incapacitate the team that was coming out at them. They run away. Izuku tells Uraraka to look at him, and tells her that she's got this, and to take a deep breath and guide them. Uraraka takes in a deep breath, and she puts on her bravery face. Okay, guys, let's do this! They run around for a little bit until they come across another team, and they charge at one another, and soon they're wrestling for one another's headband. Uraraka then got the idea to use her quirk on the other's team, making their team member their leader to become light as a feather, causing him to float a few feet in the air. Uraraka still had her grip on the headband, and soon she pulled it off of his head and put it around her neck. She then lets the team leader back down, and his team members manage to catch him on time. Uraraka and her team, as Uraraka and her team are running away, Izuku says, "Good job, Uraraka." She blushes a bit. "Oh, thanks, Izuku." This goes on for a while, and they get some headbands, and they lose some headbands, but they still have a chance to move on to the next round. But then, Midnight informed everyone that there was 2 minutes left. Uraraka says, "Okay, guys, we're doing good. Just a minute and a few seconds left to go. I can tell that people are getting more and more relentless, so we're gonna have to show the same level. In fact, some people are even being more relentless, just running over one another for points." Izuku takes note of this, and he thinks that it might be a good time to Dino out. If the time calls for it, of course. Uraraka says, "Guys, get ready. We got Bakugo's team staring right at us." They look, and they see Bakugo's team is looking at them. They charge at each other, and soon, Bakugo and Uraraka are wrestling for one another's headband. Things start to intensify when Bakugo lets out firecracker-sized explosions near Uraraka's face. Izuku tells Tokoyami to cover Uraraka in dark shadow, but Tokoyami said that fire and such light is Dark Shadow's weakness. Izuku sees that Bakugo is getting more and more aggressive, and he was about to tell Mei and Tokoyami to grab a hold of him so that he could Dino out, but then Mei said that this is the perfect time to show off my gadgets. Everyone, hold on to your socks. And the leader at the same time. She then pushes a button on a controller, and the jetpack on Uraraka's back lights up, and they start flying off into the air. And they were lucky enough to have kept their headbands. Everyone was shook by how high they were, but at the same time, it was really exhilarating. "And our flight was a success," said Mei Hatsume. "Good job, Mei," she self-high-fives herself. "Oh, I can't take all the credit, but thank you anyway," she says to herself. Suddenly, the jetpack starts emitting smoke from its thrusters, and it made a rattling noises with a small explosions from the thrusters. They stop in midair. Uraraka said, Mei? What happened?" Don't be mad, but I think it's broken." They start falling back to Earth, and the wind starts blowing in their hair. Uraraka tries to use her gravity quirk, but she couldn't reach her other teammates, and feared that she wouldn't make it. That's when Izuku got an idea. He quickly grabs a hold of Tokoyami and Mei, but Uraraka was too far to reach from there, and there were only a few seconds left before they hit the ground. And so, he goes for it. He then yells, "Dino out!" and he turns into his T-Rex form, using his tail to extend out towards Uraraka, and she grabs a hold of it. He then curls his tail towards his chest where everyone else was, and quickly tells Uraraka to use her gravity quirk on him, but just as she was about to use it, it was too late, and Izuku hit the ground with tremendous force, causing the whole surroundings to be shrouded in dirt. It was hard to see what was going on, and it was hard to tell if the students were okay. When suddenly, Dino Deku clears the air with one furrow on his tail, swiping it around and letting out a loud roar with the rest of his teammates on his back. Everyone was okay, including Izuku, but he was experiencing a little back problem. Izuku slowly turns back to normal with a little bit of a limp in his step. "Midoriya, are you okay?" "Yeah, I'm okay. I just need to go rest." By the way, the competition had ended when he hit the ground. Mei then said, I'm sorry, I thought I had the schematics correctly. No, it's fine, it's not your fault. He then walks off, and Tokoyami and Uraraka help him to the resting room and lay him down. Using his stress gripper, he repeatedly squeezes it and does his breathing exercises as he feels the temptation and the anger starting to take over him. Okay, just stay calm, Izuku. Just stay calm, you're okay. He was able to keep his anger at bay. He does this for a while, until the break was about over, and the next round was a 1v1. And the same thing happened with Ojiro wanting to withdraw for his pride. So, everyone's fight goes the same, but when it is Izuku's turn to go up against Shinso, he was warned by Ojiro to not answer any of his questions because he thinks he has the ability to brainwash people if he talks to them. Izuku takes his word for it, and soon their fight begins. The two boys stare at each other. Shinso lets out a grin and says, So, how's... Izuku interrupts him. The weather? Oh yeah, it's just fine. Shinso is confused. No, Izuku interrupts him again. Yeah, I got a good rest in before getting started. Thanks for asking. Izuku tries his best to hold back a laughter, but a smile comes across his face. This annoys Shinso because now he knows what Izuku is doing. Would you stop interrupting me? Said Shinso. Izuku doesn't say anything. He just tucks his lips in, trying to hide his smile. Good. Now what's your birthday? Oh, July 15th. Would you shut your mouth? God! Izuku shakes his head in a no position. Shinso grins his teeth and he charges in at Izuku. He treats this fight like a bullfight in some sort of ways. Whenever Shinso gets closer to him, he dodges and he attacks him, giving a small bump to his head. He was like, dodge, bonk, dodge, bonk. Stop horsing around, said Shinso. Shinso then charges in at Izuku once again, and Izuku finally takes things a bit more serious. And Shinso throws a punch, Izuku blocks it, and he unintentionally uses his full strength, laying a punch on the center of Shinso's chest, knocking all the air out of him. Shinso falls to his knees, trying to regain his breathing. Oops, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to use that much strength. Shinso would say in a weak voice, Why did you do that? Look, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Oops. Gotcha. Shinso then mind controls Izuku and gets him to stand completely still. He regains his composure, and while Izuku was standing in place, he repeatedly punched Izuku in the face until he got tired. Izuku's face had a few bruises, and blood began to spill from the edge of his mouth. Shinso then said, God, you are annoying. Anyway, this fight is over. Now walk off the stage. Izuku turns around and he begins to walk towards the stairs. His classmates are yelling at him to stop, but he keeps going. From the exit, he saw Toshinori, who was hoping that he would stop. But just behind Toshinori, in the shadowy areas, Izuku could make out 8 figures, including Toshinori, with all of them having glowing eyes of different colors. They almost look like the same people from his dream that night before he was admitted into the hospital. Suddenly, Izuku felt a rush of energy flowing throughout him, and a shock wave ensues, and a huge gush of wind makes everyone jump from being surprised. And so the dust settles, and Izuku stops just before he passes the line. He takes in a deep breath and notices that two of his fingers on his left hand are broken, and he was freed from Shinso's control. He looks down at his hand and then at Toshinori and then back at Shinso. His facial expressions change to anger, and he changes into his first form of his Dino form, with his teeth and his claws and his eyes. Shinso is a bit shocked by this to see Izuku that way. And then Izuku then breathes heavily with smoke coming from his mouth, as if he was a furious predator. Well, anyway, he then runs at Shinso, and Shinso is scared out of his mind that he runs out of the ring, and Izuku stops before he could cross the finish line. And then he says, "Geez, I was only kidding. Why so serious?" The crowd starts cheering, and Izuku walks off to Recovery Woman's office. Everyone's fight goes the same, and soon it's Todoroki versus Midoriya. Izuku was on his way to the arena when he accidentally came across Todoroki and his father Endeavor talking amongst each other. Endeavor chastises his son for not using his fire side, saying that it is only a fragment of his true power. The ice side, of course, he's referring to. Todoroki grunts and he walks away. Izuku, now getting why Todoroki is the way he is because he doesn't have a good relationship with his father, and he has a strong feeling that he doesn't have a strong relationship with his possible relatives either, if he does have them, to which we all know he does. He is the source of Todoroki's hatred for fire, because he's so overwhelming, and I'll bet something else happened in Todoroki's past that made him the way he is. Izuku then walks off in the same direction Todoroki was when Endeavor asked Izuku to get his son to use his fire side. To which Izuku said, "I can't make him do something he doesn't want to do. It's his choice to use it or not. I can tell by your conversation," which I totally did not mean to eavesdrop on, "with him having his reasons why he doesn't want to use it. Perhaps you should apologize to him for being such an overbearing parent. And by the way that you look and talk at him, I can tell that you are somewhat abusive towards him. That's just bad parenting, Endeavor." Bad. Izuku walks off, and Endeavor is left stern, and Endeavor is left with a stern look on his face. Soon, we move on to the arena. The two boys, one Dino shapeshifter and the other one half hot, half cold conjurer, staring intensely at each other. Midnight then said, "Begin!" And the two are standing in the same place. A few seconds go by. They're still in the same position. Their classmates ask each other, why are they just standing there? Izuku raises his hands up and he gestures Todoroki to bring it on. Todoroki takes one step forward, and from it was ice started to conjure from underneath the ground and lunging right at Izuku. Izuku quickly jumps high into the air and ran towards Todoroki using the ice that he had conjured an icy path towards him. He then batters his fist back ready to swing, but then Todoroki conjured ice in front of him as a sort of shield, but Izuku's punch was mighty enough to burst through it, laying a hit on Todoroki's face. He falls to the ground, but he uses his ice for support. When Izuku lunges at him again, this time he conjures a huge glacier of ice to divide them and gets some space. The ice glacier was a few meters from the ground. Todoroki was in its path, and with that, Izuku got an idea. He then turns into his first Dino form. He would use his claws to slide down halfway to the ice. When he got to the center of its height, he then started slashing at it, getting it to fall towards Todoroki. From down below, Todoroki was wondering, what was he doing? When Izuku was halfway done, he then punched the top half of the ice pillar, causing it to fall towards the half-red and half-white hair boy. And he was ready to conjure more ice, but then the falling glacier then shattered into a million pieces, and in the midst of those shattered pieces was Izuku. And he is seen lunging at Todoroki, just about to land on him. Todoroki was barely able to dodge the attack, and Izuku punched the ground, causing it to crack underneath his strength. Izuku looks at Todoroki and he starts relentlessly attacking him. Some of his hits were successful, but some Todoroki managed to dodge. Izuku wasn't even giving him a chance to get a breather. Things got a lot more rough when Izuku used his tail to swing at Todoroki, making it harder for him, leaving a few bruises. Todoroki throws a punch. It connects, but it only connects to Izuku's palm, for he caught it in mid-air. While he was holding his fist, he lets Todoroki breathe, and it's at this point, due to the temperatures that dropped from the ice, Todoroki was breathing smoke, and yet breathing as if he was running a marathon. Izuku looks deep into Todoroki's eyes and says, "Such a shame. I'm really disappointed right now, Todoroki. You said you were going to give it your all. You said you were better than me. And I am only using 1/4 of my quirk. Yet, I'm beating you in this battle. Heck, you're so bad at this, I don't even think I'm using my Dino form. Why don't you just use your fire quirk and give me a good fight?" Todoroki becomes angered by those words and he says, "I will not use his fire quirk. It's because of him my mother is living in hell. He abused my mother to a point she lost her mind, and she poured boiling water on my face. She immediately regretted it, and her sanity returned to her, and she tried helping me using her ice quirk over my burning eye, which caused this scar you see before you to be. And it's all his fault. She is where she is. It's his fault I never got to live a normal childhood. And I just wanna..." Izuku, now understanding why he only uses 1/2 of his quirk, finishes his sentence for him. "You want to show the world that you can be successful without your fireside?" "No," says Todoroki. "His fireside. I remember that day when my mom did this. She was on the phone and she said that the red half of my hair reminded me of him. The shakiness in her voice. Does she think that I'm like him? Could this fire be his fire?" Izuku says, "No, Todoroki. It's your fire." When children grow up, their parents always push the agenda that they want their children to be like them. But over time, we do end up becoming more like our parents without even noticing. You yourself have become more like your dad. No, but you have. You see, you thrive to show the world that you're better. You never smile. You never let people see you for who you truly are. You're a guy who wants to feel like he belongs somewhere. But if you want to show that you are better than your father, you're gonna have to take a good long look into a mirror and learn to accept yourself for who you are. You are your own person. Especially this fireside is yours. And until you respect yourself and learn to accept yourself and your fire, you'll always be left in the dark, Todoroki. Izuku then lets go of Todoroki's fist and he starts walking off, planning to withdraw from the battle. As he's walking away, Todoroki looks down at his hands and starts reflecting on his life. He remembers he has older siblings. He actually likes All Might when he was small. But even after a few years of not seeing his mother, he couldn't remember what she looked like. Do I even remember what I look like? He says to himself. I haven't looked in a mirror in many years. He then looks up at Izuku, who is almost out of the ring. He has helped me open my eyes, and I at least owe him this. Suddenly, Izuku feels intense heat from behind him, and he smiles. There you go. He then turns around and he sees fire emanating from the left side of Todoroki's body. He smiles and says, now we're talking. And since you're gonna go all out, just like you said, I may as well do the same. Dino out! He then turns into his T-Rex form, and the two lunge at each other. First thing Todoroki does is that he throws a huge glacier of flames in Izuku's direction, but Izuku's lizard skin was durable enough to withstand the intense heat from the flames. But only for a short moment of time. Izuku then uses One For All into his tail and he slaps it to the ground in Todoroki's direction. He destroys half of the battlefield in hopes that Todoroki would fall out of bounds. But then Todoroki uses his ice to surf around in circles around Dino Deku. Dino Deku then used his sonic shouts to shatter the ice around him. And Todoroki falls, but then he uses his flames to hover in midair as a sort of jetpack. Todoroki then starts blasting fire and ice down at Dino Deku, and when Izuku was under fire, he then got an idea. He slaps his tail to the ground and caused ice and concrete, such debris, to jump into the air, and he would use his tail as a baseball bat, whacking the debris towards Todoroki. Todoroki, barely being able to dodge, floats around all over the place. This goes on for a while, and Todoroki decides to take this fight head on. He then maneuvers himself over Izuku and lands on his back and would lash out, hitting him with ice and fire. Izuku tried to shake him off, but Todoroki just wouldn't get off. So he decided to roll on his back, which worked. Todoroki was off, and Izuku lunged at him. Todoroki once again throws a barrage of fire and ice, but it doesn't bother Izuku, not quite yet. He then activates full cowling, with electricity surging throughout his entire body, and he zooms even faster towards Todoroki. Todoroki would charge up to the max that his power will allow him to, and the environment and the temperature in the environment skyrocketed from hot to cold. It was like a tornado was going to form with how the clouds were acting. And just as Todoroki was about to set it off, he was struck by Izuku's tail and was flung backwards out of the ring, and he hits the wall, knocking him out. Midnight then declared Izuku the winner, and everyone cheers, but something goes wrong. Izuku, still in his T-Rex form, is looking at Todoroki as if he's still a threat. And out of nowhere, he lets out a carnivorous roar, and he lunges at Todoroki, and everyone is confused. Why is he still trying to attack him? Dino Deku then opens his mouth, ready to chomp down, and Endeavor sees this, and he takes action. He hits Izuku in the back with a fireball. It gets his attention, and he turns around, and the number 2 hero has fire engulfing his entire body with anger. He lunges at him, and Endeavor blasts Izuku with fire, but it doesn't do anything to him. Izuku then stumps the ground, knocking Endeavor off balance. While he was trying to regain his balance, Dino Deku then powered up One For All into his tail, and he whacked Endeavor, causing him to fly through the walls and outside of the battle stadium, knocking him out, breaking almost every bone in his body. Things started to intensify. His teacher, Aizawa, yelling at him from the announcement box from above, yelling at Izuku to stop, but Izuku just roared at him and continues his rampage. Soon, he was confronted by Cementos, yelling, "Kid, stop right now, or I'm going to have to restrain you." Izuku lunges at him, and Cementos said, "So be it." He then covers Izuku's body in cement and dries it. Okay, that ought to hold him until he calms down. Suddenly, everything started to shake. The cement prison started crackling, and it explodes with Dino Deku roaring to the skies with his supersonic screams, and he aims that supersonic scream at Cementos, causing him to crack into pieces. Parts of his body, an arm and a leg, falls off of him. He falls to the ground defeated. Soon, other heroes rally around Dino Deku, even All Might. "Young Midoriya, what are you doing? What has gotten into you?" All Might gets in response was a roar and snarl. Midnight then steps forward, says, "No worries, I got this." She then rips a sleeve off of her arm, and she raises it into the air with her pheromones circling around Izuku. He starts inhaling it, but then something happens. "Achoo!" This surprises Midnight. "He sneezed my pheromones?" Dino Deku then whacked Midnight with his tail, causing her to get knocked out from the impact. Aizawa yells to everyone to evacuate quickly. Kamuri Woods would try to snare Dino Deku with his vines, but before his vines could actually reach him, Dino Deku then activated full Kali, and he started zooming all over the place and made it right behind Cementos. And just as before Cementos could turn completely around, he was met with a giant foot crushing his entire body. Mount Lady then expanded outwards and tried to stomp on Dino Deku like a bug, but she kept missing. Dino Deku saw his opportunity, and he bites into her left leg, planting his teeth deep into her flesh. Blood started oozing out all over the place, and Dino Deku got a taste of it. She falls to the ground in pain, holding on to the horrible, burning sensation that the bite that Izuku left on her. Dino Deku then started violently shaking his head. He intended to rip her leg off. But then he felt a strong force hit him on the back of his leg, and he takes a knee. He then lets go of her leg, and he sees Death Grip punching at him. Izuku then puts One for All into his tail, and he tries to swing it at him, but he dodges because he studied Izuku's moves and could keep him distracted until a stronger force comes in. A few minutes pass. Kamure Woods and Mount Lady and Midnight were quickly removed, and Death Grips and All Might have been tag teaming Dino Deku for a few minutes. Death Grips and All Might getting very tired, sweating bullets, breathing very heavily, and oddly enough, even with all the Detroit smashes and the punches that they're laying on him, they're only doing little damage. But after a minute of punches from the two heroes, at some point, Dino Deku does fall, seemingly passing out. All Might and Death Grips approach him, wondering what's gotten into him, to which All Might said he didn't know, but hopefully he can calm down once he wakes up. Almost everyone who was watching TV from the news helicopter, everyone was just relieved. But what they didn't know was that Dino Deku was faking it. When he saw his opportunity, he then turned One for All to 100% into his tail. Aizawa tried to warn them of the impact, but he was too late. Dino Deku had smashed All Might and Death Grips into the dirt, repeatedly bashing them with his tail over and over and over again. Everyone who was watching froze out of fear, for the number one hero was taken down by a dinosaur of all things. The camera focuses back on Dino Deku, who once again lets out a mighty roar. He looks around and sees that there was no one else to fight him. But then, he looks and he sees the helicopter flying overhead, and that's when he gets the idea to leave the stadium. He starts banging his head against the wall, causing it to crack. From both sides, people were still standing near the building, and they see that it's starting to crack. Class 1A, talking amongst one another, Sue says, "You guys, what's going on with him?" Bakugo says, "I don't know, but if he doesn't stop this rampage, chances are they're going to have to take him out." He says this as he drags his thumb across his neck, indicating that they might have to put Izuku down to a point where he's not going to get back up. Sue gasps from those words and takes it amongst herself to talk to Izuku out of his rampage. People try to stop her, but she slipped through them. She makes it into the battlefield, where Dino Deku was just about to bust through the wall with one more hit, until he heard, "Wait! Midoriya!" He then turns around and he sees this half frog, half girl. He roars at her, and she slowly starts walking towards him while saying, "Please, just calm down." Dino Deku is slowly starting to back up from the fear that he gets from this girl. He's scared of her? Well, that's first. The news is getting this, and everyone is shocked that this dinosaur who defeated the top 10 heroes of all times, even All Might, is scared of a frog girl? Sue continues to corner Izuku, trying to calm him down. "You don't want to do this. I get that you're scared, but you gotta stop. They're gonna hurt you." Izuku's back hits the wall, and in a second attempt to assert his dominance, he lets out a mighty roar in Sue's face, just inches away from her. Drool shoots out in her direction. Sue is frightened that Izuku won't stop, and she starts to tear up in one last attempt to get Izuku back, was to comfort him a bit closer. And so, before she tried that, she looks deep into Dino Deku's eyes and said, "Please, I'm scared." She then tightly grabs a hold of Izuku's underchin, his giant underchin, and with that, it stuns Izuku. And he feels something in his chest just aching. He feels the need to shake his head to get out of the frog girl's grip, but he slowly starts shrinking back to normal. Sue, not seeing what is going on, says, "Please, calm down." And then, suddenly, she feels a light tap on her shoulder. Sue? Why are you hugging me? She looks and sees a really confused Izuku about what's going on. "Izuku, you're back." "Yeah, I'm back. From where? What's going on?" "Oh no, did I lose control? Oh my god, who did I hurt?" He then takes a few steps away from Izuku and he sees blood in certain parts of the stadium. "Oh my god, what have I done?" Suddenly, Izuku felt a sharp stinging pain on his lower thigh. He then quickly removes it and sees that it was a syringe. Almost immediately, he felt dizzy and off balance. He falls over, but Sue catches him before he could hit the ground, saying, "It's gonna be okay." Izuku passes out, and soon, Izuku wakes up in a room that had light in the walls in a sort of square pattern. He then looks down at himself and he realizes that he's wearing a gray jumpsuit. He then sits up and finds himself in a bed and a room 14 feet by 16 feet long. He then places his feet onto the ground as he looks up at a heavily gated door. And then he says to himself, "Where am I?" And that's where we're going to be leaving for What If Deku was in the Dino Squad. Now, I'm really sorry that this story took a long time to get back to, but now we are finally going to bring this story to an end, and it might take a while, I'm not going to lie to you all. But I do hope that you all enjoy this video, and if you like this video, leave a like, tell your friends about me, and be sure to tell yourself that you are #blessed every time you finish a full-time Anime Man What If story. I hope you all have a nice day. Goodbye.